Okay, hello everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing good. We survived the pandemic. Not everybody, but we're still going, I guess. Hopefully, pandemic is gone, and we have a great year ahead of us in discussions. And I'm starting out with this discussion here of my 3 greatest discoveries in physics, geology, and biology. So let me go ahead and get started. So here we go. Let me just double check to see if I'm okay here. I'm still here? Okay, I'm still here. So, what's this about? Oh, there I am. Okay, there I am right there. Okay. All right, so I wanted to discuss the 3 most recent greatest discovery in physics, geology, and biology. And let me just go ahead and bring this up here. Just for the effect. Okay, so in physics, we have the quote-unquote time-light problem, or the supposed time-light problem. It's supposed to be a big problem for creationists, and because if the Earth is young and the distant starlight is billions of light years away, 13 some billion light years away, that's a problem for a 6,000-year-old creation. But it's really kind of simple, the explanation, believe it or not, because there's a thing called relativity. And in relativity, or in reality, in the universe, there is no absolute measure of time or distance in the universe. So what that means is that time and distance are a fabrication that's a direct result of the creation or the formation of matter that has mass and gravity to dilate time and distance. So that's the reason why you really can't put an age on the universe, because time is a fabrication. It's a real fabrication, but it's still a fabrication. So what happens is that with the creation or the formation of matter, which is in the 6 days of creation, because we have an arbitrary measure of time given in the Bible, which is a 24-hour day. It's how we measure time, with our 24-hour days, 7 days a week, and 300 some days a year or something like that. But anyways, if I didn't introduce myself, I'm Jungle Jargon. I was raised in the Amazon, and so put my aptitude to searching out these problems, supposed problems, or in physics, geology, and biology, just not necessarily intentionally, but just wondering, what was going on, what we're being told, and looking at what the evidence is for myself and figuring it out. So yeah, this timeline problem is really not such a problem because, like I said, there is no absolute measure of time or distance in the universe. So what happens when you look out in the universe and you see the galaxies, you see the stars and the distant galaxies? When you see a galaxy, what you're looking at, they really can't figure it out. Somehow they can't figure it out why the outside is moving so fast compared to the inside because of the gravity, right? But they're not factoring in all the effects of relativity. When they're expecting the galaxy, the outside of the galaxy to go slower than the inside, they're not accounting for the different measures of the rate of time and the measure of distance. So when you see a galaxy, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing different rates of time and different measures of distance. So the closer you get to the center of the galaxy, the more time slows down and the more distance contracts. So the same distance is going to be smaller closer to the center of the galaxy than it is outside the galaxy. And that's why as you go out to the outer edges of the galaxy, it looks more spread out because it is more spread out because distance increases and time speeds up. So what happens with the photons that we're seeing is that once the light, the distant starlight, leaves the galaxy or leaves the star and goes into outer space, there's no matter or mass to slow down time and to shorten distance anymore. So the distance is increased where there is no gravity outside of the galaxy, so that time runs at a faster rate of time. So you could say that they're right. It's 13 billion light years away, the most distant galaxy. We'll just take that and say, yeah, that's correct. It's 13 billion light years away, except that when you have a faster rate of time, the billions of years goes by faster relative to the rate of time that we experience inside of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. So they can have their billions of years. Time is a creation anyway. It's a fabrication anyway. It's a real fabrication. But the rate of time increases so that once the photons or the light, distant starlight, leaves the galaxy or the star and is away from any matter, because there's no matter in between us and the distant galaxies. There's nothing to slow down the measure, the rate of time. And when there is, they have anomalies of seeing the same event in different places in the sky, but also at different times, like years apart from each other. So what I'm talking about is a real, actual observed phenomenon, that time, that the mass of the matter does slow down time. So what happens when it leaves the galaxy or leaves the star, when the light is away from the galaxy, there's no matter or mass to slow down time. So the rate of time goes by faster, so that the billions of light years are going to be flying by in a matter or a space of, within 6,000 years, according to our rate of time inside of our galaxy. Well, this, you could argue at how much of effect that it has, or how much it really affects the rate of time. I think it's considerable enough to be able to see the distant starlight. But you need to understand that time itself is a fabrication. Now, creationists have tried to explain this by being in a white hole, which I don't think has been observed yet. But that's just goes to show you that time is still just a fabrication. There's no single rate of time. You can't measure the age of the universe accurately because of the different rates of the passing of time. Because which rate are you going by? Are you going by the slow rate near the black hole in the universe, or are you going to by the fast rate of time away from the galaxies and the black holes? So you can't really say. I mean, it's just like what God says in the Bible, is that 1,000 years is like a day. A day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day to Him. That's because time is a physical fabrication, the result of the formation of matter that has mass, that has gravity, that dilates or slows down time and distance, all of which has been observed. We can't even use GPS without understanding the different rates of time. And they recently discovered the collision of two neutron stars that collided. They detected it with the interferometer and the gravitational waves, and they triangulated the location, and they saw the explosion when they told everybody to look in a certain place in the night sky. So the dilation of distance has been confirmed, as well as the dilation of time, or the variability of time and distance, the measure of distance. So there's no single rate, it varies. And of course that affects how long it takes for light to reach us. So that's probably your solution there to the time-light problem. Okay, in geology, my most recent finding in geology, let me see if I can pull this up here, which I forgot to put it up. Let's see what I got here. Somehow, okay, it's not this. Okay, where am I? Somehow, I have to find a map here. This is not the map. Anyway, let me just go ahead and see if I can find it. Why is it being so troublesome already. There's continental. Let me go to continental drift. What is this? Oh, okay. We'll go with this. So this gives you an idea of the breakup of the continents. Everybody basically agrees that the continents were joined together. They're not showing here North America or Europe, but they're not too far away. They're in the same general area, probably connected as well. Because this part of Africa over here fits right into the United States, basically, the eastern coast of the United States. But this is just showing what the Earth was like before the breakup of the continents. Now, the question would be, of course, when was the breakup of the continents? So, and of course, this part of Africa would fit right in here in the continental shelf for the eastern coast of the United States. And so then the question would be, when was the breakup of the continents? Now, the problem is that you have these glaciers, which is not really a problem, it's just evidence. You have glaciers. Remember, there was this thing called the global flood? And you have glaciers on top of the sediments deposited by the global flood. So you had the global flood first. This is the sequence of events. You had the global flood, then you have ice at the poles. You immediately have glaciers. For the first 100 years, there's evidence of glaciers moving in India from south to north, and all the continents, basically from south to north, with a apparent center location in the southern part of Africa. In Antarctica, we don't really know which way the glaciers went because it's still covered with ice for obvious reason. But Australia, you can see south to north, India south to north, Africa south to north, South America is basically almost south to north. But what happened was these glaciers, formed after the deposition of the sediment layers. The sediment layers, all these areas here line up as far as the fossil evidence, and the sediment layers, they all line up here. They connect. There's the same animals here as there are over here. Same sediment layers here as there are over here. And so the breakup, that puts the breakup after the deposition of the sediment layers, after the burial of the fossils, because they're the same animals. In fact, the plant fossils go all the way through from South America to Australia. You have the same plant fossils all the way through, and you have animal fossils connecting all these land masses, these continents. So that means that the breakup had to have happened after the global flood. And there's a verse in the Bible that I love to point out, that some people don't like it as much as I do, I guess. It says, in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. And people have taken it to mean, ever since I was a kid, that that means that's a reference to the languages that separated the people. But that's not what the text actually says. It says the earth was divided in the days of Peleg. Peleg meant divided in Hebrew. In Aramaic, it no longer meant divided. It means as the waters flow. So something happened after the continents were divided. It became as the waters flow, apparently between the continents. But anyways, a number of things happened at that time. The lifespan was cut in half once by the global flood itself, down to less than 500 years. In the days of Peleg, the earth was divided and the lifespan was cut in half a second time to less than 250 years. And you can check that out in the lifespan of the patriarchs. It's very clear. So it was a real event, and when I was a kid, many, many years ago, probably some 50 years ago, they told me that there's two interpretations of that the earth was divided. Some people think it was the people that was divided, and some people think it was actually the earth that was divided. They told me that 50 years ago. So I kept in the back of my head all that time that, well, what if it actually is the earth that was divided in the days of Peleg, which is exactly 100 years after the global flood? So let's consider what would happen here. Let's say there was a global flood. Let's say, and we don't know if Asia was already connected here anyway. Could be that Asia was already connected. It could be that the Mediterranean was already here, and Europe and America as well. But what would happen with a spinning Earth, with the Earth spinning? This is the South Pole, remember? Or this is the South Pole somewhere in here. Because we don't know exactly where these things were positioned, but we can see from the ice here which way the ice was flowing from the glacial markings that are observed on the continents to this day. So let's just go with what the Bible says is that the earth was divided in the days of Peleg. There was a catastrophic event, and the earth broke apart. So what would happen if the earth broke apart in the days of Peleg? And it would have been a terrifying event, and apparently was. The Bible is basically one of the few things that mention it. I don't know about the other books, the Book of Jasher or whatever, if they mention it, but the Bible actually mentions it in Genesis. It mentions a lot of interesting things too as well. But let's just go with what it says and say, okay, 100 years after the global flood, it was one landmass here, and the earth was divided. So what would happen here? What would happen if these sections broke apart here? This is at the South Pole spinning, and they broke apart. Which direction would these continents go from the South Pole? Well, South America would go north, Australia would go north, India would go north, Africa would go north. And you can see, here's the tip of Antarctica right here, this tip right here. South America went north, Africa went north, India went north. And it didn't really move that far, relatively speaking, because India, according to this, was connected to the Horn of Africa. So India was right here on the Horn of Africa, and who knows about Asia. It didn't have far to go to Asia, but apparently it crashed into Asia when it broke apart. So if the Earth is spinning like this and there's a big landmass near the South Pole, it'd be kind of oblong. It'd be kind of spinning a little bit oblong. But then when it broke apart, everything would separate from each other. They would spread out going north because of the centrifugal force from having been broken apart. So what happened here when in the Atlantic Ridge, it broke apart? So it pushed, as it was going north, it was also pushing to the west. So what happened, it would put pressure on the Pacific plate, right? And since the split was here, it would put pressure on the Rocky Mountains and the Andes Mountains and stuff. And it would put pressure on the Pacific plate, right? So it pushed up the mountains, pushed up the highlands in Brazil, pushed up the Appalachian Mountains. You know, maybe they were already there, but pushed them up some more or whatever. But it put pressure on the Pacific plate. As it put pressure on the Pacific plate, the Marianas Trench folded under. The Marianas Trench goes through here like this. That buckled under from the pressure of the weight of the water and from the pressure on the ocean plates as the continents were spreading out, or as they were being pushed north from the centrifugal force, just from the breakup right here. So we don't know what initially caused the breakup, at least not yet. Maybe it was something that some kind of asteroid hit somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico or somewhere. Maybe that's what started it or caused the initial breakup. But at any rate, once it broke apart, the centrifugal force pushed everything north. As you can see, what the result is here. So as it pushed everything north, what would happen here? Because this was here, everything was at the South Pole. But then when it went north, what would happen to these regions up here in North America and Siberia? What would happen to those forests and those animals? They would have been quick frozen, right? Entire forests, entire ecosystems, 100 years after the global flood would have been quick frozen, right? And so we can make a prediction here and say that, hey, the animals, the mammoths, the lions, the buffalo, the deer, the wolves, and everything, they got quick frozen in the northern parts of Siberia and North America. So that would be the result of the breakup of the Earth being divided in the days of Peleg, just like the Bible says. And it explains everything, because it explains why the animals are the same. Living animals are the same here, both in Africa and South America. If you don't believe me that some of the animals are exactly the same, just I present to you the jaguar and the leopard, which is the same animal in two different separated, isolated ecosystems. Not only that, there's the greater grison. If you want to look up the greater grison, is basically the exact same thing as a honey badger, slightly different, but clearly it's the same animal as the honey badger in South America. Of course, then you have the crocodiles, American crocodiles, African crocodiles, Asian crocodiles. You also have tapirs, South America tapirs and the Asiatic tapirs. So clearly, these animals were isolated and separated. Explains a lot of things. Explains how the animals got to Madagascar. Right here's Madagascar. Explained how the animals got to Australia. There's Australia. Everything was connected. And of course, they're not showing what else was all connected here either. But they were able to get to Africa. They were able to get Australia and South America. And that explains, the isolation of all the different kinds of animals in New Zealand as well. And all these different places, all these different ecosystems where everything became isolated. And it's been since the global flood, or since 100 years after the global flood, that this event occurred. So the animals were instantly frozen in North America, Siberia. It's a known fact. The glacial markings go from south to north in India. It's a known fact. Of course, there's no glaciers today in India. And of course, the glaciers are on top of the sediments deposited by the global flood. Just like what they say about the pyramids of Egypt. They say, well, what about the pyramids of Egypt? Well, the pyramids of Egypt are built on top of the sediments deposited by the global flood. Every ancient civilization is built on top of the sediments deposited by the global flood. So it's not that complicated, really. So that takes care of the geology, pretty much. What happened there, and so the next greatest, most recent discovery in biology would be the DNA, the human haplogroups, you might say. See if I got here. See if I'm still here. Redefine living. Hello. How are you doing? God bless. I got a lot of people watching here. My greatest, most recent discoveries. That's just awesome. Anyway, on to the third greatest third greatest discovery in biology, which would be the genetics. Of course, this applies to animals as well, that everything could be traced if they had enough money to do so by studying the genetics of all the animals. So this is the one that I've spent quite a bit of time on already. A lot of people may or may not know about this one. The biology, or both the paternal, maternal haplogroups, as well as the autosomal and everything. There's a lot of interesting things going on here that you can find, you can learn. With the Middle East, there's a lot of interesting things happen that people aren't aware of, which would be another one of the greatest discoveries in genetics, is that basically the Phoenicians and Israel, because Israel and the Phoenicians were at peace in the days of King Solomon, of course, the Phoenicians were the sea people. They had trade routes all the way to America and back again, and they left their DNA. Both maternal DNA and paternal DNA in the New World. So here is interesting how I was able to determine. That every ancient civilization can be identified as to who their descendants are. So every ancient civilization, which let me just go ahead and see if I can find it here. Right here. These are the ancient civilizations right here. Okay, of course, Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and we will be tracing the Y chromosome now. And we can also trace the mitochondrial DNA as well, which we can do, which also verifies who is who here. So Japheth had 7 sons, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Taraz. And they have great-grandsons here too of Noah. So these are the great-grandsons of Noah. These are the grandsons of Noah. And each one of these grandsons became a civilization, a known ancient civilization. You know, I'm not making this stuff up. This is called the Table of Nations. So we can expect to be able to identify the Y haplogroup of the descendants of Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Taraz, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, Canaan, Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Arphaxad, Lud, Aram. So we have 5 sons of Shem, 4 sons of Ham, there's Put, and 7 sons of Japheth. So who are these people? These are the Eurasians. Japheth is what's known as the nations. The Bible refers to it as the nations, the northern nations. Japheth is the Eurasians. And it's interesting, too, that the Neanderthals, of course, are in Europe, all the way through the steppe region, all the way to Asia, the Neanderthals. And the people most related to the Neanderthals are the Eurasians, of course. So, because the Neanderthals were Eurasian. They're just another line that doesn't have descendants living today. So then there's Ham. We know who Ham is. And we know who Cush is, we know who Mitzrayim is, we know who Put is, and we know who Canaan is. We know all about these ancient civilizations. Put would be the original North Africans living with descendants living today. Of course, Egypt still living today. Cush still living today. Canaan still living today. The descendants. Same thing with Shem. Shem had 5 sons. Elam is the father of Elamites. Asher, the father of the Syrians. Arpachshad, the father of the Eberus, Peleg, Terah, and Abram. Keeping in mind, Terah was living during the lifespan of Nimrod. Okay, so Nimrod is the great-grandson of Noah, but Nimrod is born before the days of Peleg. So Nimrod's lifespan probably was not cut in half a second time the way people after Peleg's lifespan was, including Terah. For example, Terah was living at the time Arpachshad was living. In fact, he was living with all these people were living, Eber. So much so that Jacob knew some of these people as well. I think Jacob was living at the time of some of these people, Eber and such. So this is the problem with the secular historians. They don't believe that Terah was around with Nimrod like the Bible outlines. The Bible says that Terah was, there with Nimrod. And then, of course, there's Esau. Esau was allegedly killed Nimrod, but that's possible if Nimrod had the same kind of lifespan that these people had. Arphaxad, Selah, and Eber. Okay, that's another side note, but something to consider anyway. So all of these are nations. Lud is Lydia. Aram is the Arameans. And we know all about these people. We know all about the Arameans. We know all about these people here, these cities and people. We know about the Lydians. We know about the Eberus. This is Eber and the Eberus. We know about the Assyrians, which Nimrod was a part of the Assyrians. That's why it's rather confusing sometimes. They don't know why the Assyrians, had features like Nimrod and, the curly hair and such. Well, it's because Nimrod is the son of Cush. Nimrod is also the progenitor of the Pacific Islanders, the Australians, the Olmecs. That's why the Olmec statues look like Pacific Islanders, because they're all descendants of Nimrod. And of course, many of the Assyrians were as well. Because Nimrod, of course, was the king. He was king because, of course, he was the grandson of the great-grandson of Noah. Son, grandson, great-grandson. So he's the great-grandson of Noah, so that the reason why he was king was because he had lots of descendants. There's what was called the Household of Nimrod. Some people like to resolve it saying there's more than one Nimrod. That's what it was talking about with Terah and Nimrod and Abraham. But it's probably that Terah was the idol maker for Nimrod, and Abraham got into trouble with his father and with Nimrod because he broke the idols and was against the idolatry of the people, which was a serious thing at the time because the whole world was evil at the time. We have to understand that the whole world was evil. Elamites, the Syrians, Arameans, the whole world was evil. It was only Abram that listened to God and went to the land of Canaan like God told him to possess the land of Canaan, because that's the land that God chose for himself to make a name for himself, which happens to be in the middle of ancient history, happens to be in the middle of the geography as well. So going back here, Just keep in mind all of these names. These are all the ancient civilizations. Gomer is the Europeans. Magog is the Asians, a lot of Asians. Madai is the Medes. Javan is the Greek Sea people. Tiraz is the Greek people. Tubal settled in Italy. Meshech went north. And so we can follow, we know where all these people, where these ancient civilizations were, we know where they went. Now, if somebody can come and show me an ancient civilization that's not one of the grandsons of Noah, that would falsify the Bible, right? But of course you can't, because these are all the ancient civilizations, and they did live 500 years until the days of Peleg, when the lifespan was cut in half a second time. And Terah did live at the time of Eber, Salah, and Arpachshad. In fact, some of these people outlived Terah. And as well as Jacob and Esau. So if you look at the lifespan. So anyway, a lot of stuff can be explained here with the genetics. So let's go back and look at the genetics. So how did I figure this out? You know, it's so complicated. You got all these. Of course, this is the Y chromosome. This is the paternal line, which got me started. And to be honest, what got me started was Nimrod. So Nimrod was the one that got me started, because Nimrod was the king of Shinar, Mesopotamia, and king over the Assyrians, basically, and over the Assyrians or whatever. Anyway, somehow Nimrod and his descendants became part of the Assyrians, which is Semitic. And of course, Nimrod is the son of Cush. But that's what you have happening in there. A lot of times you even have some of the same names here. You even have some of the same names here with these people here. Havilah, you know. Maybe they were different people, but they were, you know, Sheba, Dedan. Anyway. So how did since this is so confusing, I mean, it's so confusing. Look how confusing it is over here. It says J1 Middle Eastern Semitic. Then it has I and J here together. It has L and T together. Why would L and T be together? Well, the L and T. Well, it turns out that Alexander the Great, when he went to India, he brought with him the Greek Sea peoples, which are the T and the L, into India. So we have the L's and the T's in India because Alexander the Great wanted to ride elephants or something. You know? So, and we have the, FG, and of course there's the H, FG, H, I, J. But the L and the T is not Semitic. But we do have here, of course it might be a little bit confusing because you have the L here and you have the Elamo-Dravidian here. But anyways, J2 again, Middle Eastern. So J1, J2. So J1 and I would be the descendants of Arpachshad, Arphaxad. Elamo-Dravidians. Who's Elamo-Dravidians? This is the area of the Elamites. So what we have here, Dravidian. Here's the Dravidians right here. H. This is Semitic. So this Semitic Y chromosome would be the Y chromosome of Elam, because Elam is Semitic, not Greek, not a descendant of Japheth. These are descendants of Japheth. And of course, you have the Q. Q is of the Medes. Remember the Medes and the Persians? They'd be in Persia, right? Medes and Persians, that's Q. Be Madais, one of the sons of Japheth. Q is also, believe it or not, in Europe. Madai was also in Europe, in this area, right in this area, in Europe. So we're starting to see things fit together now, all of a sudden. We got the Elamites as H. We have the descendant of Arpachshad as the I and the J. So who's the F? Who's the F and the G's? No. The G, it would have to be the Assyrians. The F would be the Arameans. So the F is the Arameans. The G is the Assyrians. And the more you put it together, the more things fit together. You know, it might not seem apparent right now, but the more they fit together. But these were easy to find after I got started, because what got me started was the CY chromosome. Because Nimrod, which is of course in this area as well, but Nimrod was the son of Cush. So I'm thinking, well, who is this? Who is Nimrod? Because I'm looking at this Y chromosome here. C. This is Hamitic. What's a Hamitic Y chromosome doing in this area here? So I'm thinking, well, who was Nimrod? Nimrod was the son of Cush. Nimrod was the son of Cush. So that got me started on this whole thing of being able to assign a Y chromosome to each one of the grandsons of Noah. Because this is a great grandson of Noah, but it's the only Hamitic Y chromosome in the land of Shinar, or from the house of Nimrod, the household of Nimrod, that later spread out to the east, to the north, and to the south. And it explains so much, because what do we have over here? First we have here the Dna American Indians, or the Dna, it should be Dna, but Dna. American Indians with a C3 paternal Y chromosome of Nimrod. And everything else, the majority of everything else, is Q in America, which is Madai, which means Medes. But then you have the Olmec statues. Anybody know or remember the Olmec statues? They look a little bit Polynesian. People say African, but they don't look exactly African. They look kind of Polynesian to me. And that would explain why the Olmec statues look Polynesians, because the Polynesians have the same ancestor, Nimrod. So it explains a lot. And even down here into the South America, the northern part of South America, you got the Quichuas, the Waoranis, and the Wayu, all C3, all descendants of Nimrod, direct descendants of Nimrod, paternal male descendants of Nimrod. And the Waorani became infamous because they were the most violent, savage tribe in South America. They were called Auca because they were referred to as savages. They killed 5 missionaries until the gospel was taken to them, to the tribe, and the homicide rate went from 60-some% down to 0 when the gospel was taken to them. So even the people that didn't believe benefited from the gospel that was taken to them. Missionaries get a bad rap, but that you can't argue with that kind of a result from the teaching of God's word, gospel. And I grew up right here on the equator, on the Amazon River. So that's where I come into the picture right there. But if you want to know what my Y chromosome is, it'd be this one here. They call it Germanic. The I1M253. This is the Y chromosome of the Vikings and such. But notice again, Madai is here, and I was wondering what's the Q doing up here? Why would Madai be up? Well, it turns out Madai was in Europe as well. Part of the descendants of Madai went to Europe or were in Europe. And it just goes on and on like that. But I guess my latest discovery would be about the island of Sardinia. The island of Sardinia, this area here of the Danube, is the area of the tribe of Dan. So Dan would be an I2A, which should be probably is the Y chromosome of the tribe of Dan of Israel. Anyways, so because keeping in mind that the I and J are the same tree. So that's basically how I was able to discover all of them, all the grandsons of Noah. And of course, so remember Meshach went north, up through here, up through the strait, went north. So Meshach is the end. Magog went up north as well, and south is the largest population, which is O. So Magog is O. And there is another Hamitic line in Asia. I don't know if it's an offshoot of Nimrod or another son of Cush. It could be another son of Cush. It's the DY chromosome of the Andamanese. The DY chromosome of the Andamanese, which is very dark-skinned people, is also the same DY chromosome of the Tibetans in Burma, is also the same DY chromosome of the Jomans and the Ainus, the Jomans and the Ainus of Japan. Of course, in here. And this area that's green, this is the DY chromosome. Also direct descendants of Cush. So that's either another line of Nimrod or a separate, another son of Cush in Asia that never went to Africa because it's completely, totally removed from Africa. So down here we have the C2 and the C4, which is descendants of Nimrod. We also have the K, which is the descendants of Tubal. And the M and the S and the K are basically the same branch. Of course, these people being so close together, you can hardly say, even though the lines were separated way back in the past, It's hard to say that they didn't originally belong to the same group, which is also the same group as the K. So that would explain that. They just gave it extra nomenclatures because of the different lineages. So remember, you have the Melanesians, the Polynesians, and the Micronesians, all C2, 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 all descendants of Nimrod here. You have these here, there's C here. And the other one would be the O. The O would be descendants of Magog. K is Tubal. C is the descendants of Nimrod. So what happens is when you have the Denisovan DNA, which was found way up in China, up here in China, in the Denisovan caves, it's they're more related to people in this area down here with the K, which is the Eurasian Japhetic descendants, and the autosomally would be also descendants of Nimrod as well. So it turns out that the Africans have more Denisovan DNA, and the Eurasians, especially in this area, have more Denisovan DNA. So this is really the only history we have. There is no other history. There is no other human history. It just doesn't exist. So you might as well just forget about trying to explain away the records in the Bible. Okay, like I said, you can see them all here. You can see them here. Madai, Media, Elam's here, Asher's here, Aram's here, Lud, the Lydians is here, Javan is here, Tiraz is here. Tiraz, by the way, is the Thracians. So the Thracians have the LY chromosome, the Javans have the TY chromosome. So the Javans are the C people with a TY chromosome. This might seem a little tedious to go through all of this information, but it's all very significant. Because here we have the Captarin. You can see right here. Mitzrayim had sons. The Lehabim, I don't know if it's a Lehabim, eventually became Libya, not to be confused with Lydia, up here in Anatolia. But anyways, Mitzrayim had the son Captarim, which originally belonged to the descendants of course, Mitzrayim, which is the son of Ham. So this originally was Hamitic, but then I guess they got beaten out of there or something. They left, and they became the Philistines, and they went to Canaan. They became the Philistines that gave Israel a hard time. So that explains that. And then you have, of course, Javan was the father of the people in Cyprus, Elisha, Kittim, and Tarshish. And some people have Tarshish over here, some people have Tarshish over there. It may have been in both places, may have been in one place. But the area of the seven churches was over in this Anatolia area. You have Arameans, Uzho, Joktan, Havilah, Jera, all these things. These are the all known ancient civilizations. Of course, in Europe, the Europeans are have the Y chromosome, Gomer. Gomer had a son named Ashkenaz. He had another son named Ripfa, and the other one Togarma. Togarma is said to have gone into southern Europe. Ashkenaz, of course, went into the northern part of Europe, so much so that the Jewish people that were up in the Rhine River claimed to have been Ashkenazi, same origin, same word. And Tubal was said to have settled in Italy. So Tubal is the K in Italy. Ashkenaz is the R1A in Europe. Togarma is the R1B in Europe, and Riphath is probably the R2 or something like that. You have Magog, of course, is O. Meshech is the N up in Siberia. Magog, of course, they went up through the strait here. And there is no other human history. There are no other people. You have Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. Canaan is over here, right? Canaan, sea people, Canaan, Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, or not to be confused with the Arameans. So, yeah, the Hittites, Heth, whatever. So, that's all the people. That's all the nations. It's called the Table of Nations. And of course, here is where Nimrod built the Tower of Babel before the breakup of the continents. And then the continents broke apart. And then people separated into their own family groups and started speaking different languages. Okay, here's the mitochondrial DNA of the Table of Nations, of the different nations. This would be Europe here. Of course, the mitochondrial doesn't change as much as the Y chromosome changes. So these changes are not so much. And if you notice, there's a little genetic distance here between these three nodes, as they like to say. That's because there were probably three different wives of Shem, Ham, and Japheth that probably were not sisters, or it doesn't look like they were sisters. But anyways, you have the L would be the Hamitic lineages. These are the Hermetic Lineages. It's L1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They went to Africa and stayed in Africa pretty much. The M line would be the C, the D, the E, the G, and a few others. Okay, and the largest line would be the Semitic mitochondrial lines. So these Semitic lines here are very interesting. You got the I and the S here, because you actually have you have an N line, which would be somewhere around here, including the B, and then you have the R line, which is kind of confusing, but anyway, that's the way they have it. But which is all Semitic. So what you have is an interesting thing to happen. A is in the Americas. B is in the Americas and Polynesia, or the Pacific Islands. O, W, and X, these are interesting because the X is both in the Middle East and America. Okay, which supports the idea that the Phoenicians made it to America in the days of King Solomon. So, and of course, this is Europe. But these here are exclusively in Asia. These here are exclusively in Europe. And this is in America, because it turns out there's a verse in the Bible, another verse in the Bible, that says that Madai, who was Eurasian, Japhethite, Madai asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. Madai is Q. Madai took A all the way to America, or the Q went with the A all the way to America, supporting what the Bible says. And there's other interesting things too, how B, the F, and P got to America, got to Asia as well. Because the F and the B are the Middle Eastern Semitic lines, and these other ones are more the Asiatic Semitic lines, which is kind of confusion. But descendants of Shem in Asia and descendants of Shem in Europe, or the Middle East, which is basically 95% of Europeans have the Semitic mitochondrial DNA. About 1% is M in Europe. 1% of the European maternal mitochondrial lines in Europe are M. So this is all in Asia. This is all in Europe and America here. This is all in Africa. And that explains that. Okay, so here we go. Remember I said the M and the S and the K are all the same origin. So that's why I believe that because this is like, these are the people that are most related to Denisovans. So it'd probably be the K anyway. So the Denisovan and the Denisovan cave could have been a K, or at least it was a female, but it could have been the family of the K family. Remember, the Greeks are the L and the T. T is Javan, L is Tiraz of the Thracians, Q is Madai, and R is Gomer. Of course, they have two different lines here of Q, probably because one of them is Middle Eastern that came back from America, but that's another story. Okay, so we have here's the Semitic Y chromosomes are F, G, H, I, and J. It's all Semitic family tree. The Eurasians are R, O, N, K, Q. These are the 7 sons of Japheth, and these would be the Hermetic descendants, which includes the descendants of Nimrod. This would be the descendants of Nimrod. Here's the Ainu Jomans of the Andamanese, the D line. And we have the E1, B1, which is basically the E3. But all of these came from the three E's, which are Canaan, Mitzrayim, Put, and Cush. So the C and the D, actually the A, the B, the C, and the D, they all came from basically Cush, unless you can prove otherwise with the lineage as to where it came from. But I have been able to separate. I can't show it here, but I have been able to separate the 4 lines of Cush. The 4 lines of Ham, except with the exception of Cush, which is a little bit broken apart. Spread out. Separated quite a bit. But it's basically be the A, the B, the C, and the D are descendants of Cush. And because if I went back to the other map, they don't exactly have it right, because this is one branch of the Hermetic line. This is another branch of the Hermetic line, and they have Cush as a V32, but this V32 actually belongs to the V12 line, so it's not the line of Cush. So the line of Cush is something else. It's 92, or it's a whole bunch of other things. That's something else. But Canaan is a little bit easier to define, because it's all in the area of the Arabian Peninsula and Anatolia, and this area here is all Canaan. So, and it's a separate family tree from Mitzrayim and Put. So the 3 easy ones to separate into family trees are Put, which includes more people than just the Berbers. It's not just Berbers. It's a whole family tree of North Africans. And the Egyptians would be Mitzrayim, which includes the V32 as well, because they went up the Nile as well. And Canaan are distinct family trees, and it's the Cush family tree that's kind of broken apart, partly because of the C and the D. The C and the D are descendants of Cush as well. So the whole Cush family tree is all, splittered off in different directions. But that's because Nimrod never went to Africa. Because he was the king in the land of Shinar, so he remained king of Assyria there in Mesopotamia, while everybody else spread out all over the world. So, and here's the this is a genetic distance charts. This is the evidence showing the affiliations, and of course the I and the J is our faction, our Pshad, and the G is Assyrian. Notice there's 2 F2s. There's 2 Fs, completely different lines. They have F2 over here and F over here, completely separate lines. So I named this one Aram and this one Lud. Could be this is Lud and that's Aram, but I haven't determined that yet. But it's Aram, Lud, Elam, Asher, and Arpachshad. That's 5 sons of Shem. 7 sons of Japheth is Magog, Meshach, Javan, Tiraz, Tubal, Madai, and Gomer. 7 sons of Shem, 4 sons of Ham, which I just got done trying to explain. So, and they said that Tubal settled in Italy, so we can make a prediction here and expect to find K. Oh, there it is, K. 8% of today's population in Italy are direct descendants of Tubal. Right there. So Tubal settled in Italy. Everybody else is an outsider. This is an outsider. J2 is an outsider. Of course, J2 is Judaic, most of which is probably Davidic. And then you have the J's, J1, J2. Then you have the I's, which is significant population, but this is the I2. If it's I2, would probably be mostly Dan, the tribe of Dan. But of course, you have the K up here, 2%, 8%, and down here, the K is 1%. Of course, that's southern Italy. That makes sense. But everybody else is an outsider. You have Assyria, you have Israel, you have Judah, you have Arabic, and you have, whoever, Canaan or Hamitic here. These E's are Hamitic. This is Gomer. And there's Tubal. So that's interesting there. And of course, like I said, we can just go through here and see, look, M is 1% of the population. All these other ones are basically Semitic Mitochondrial DNA. Okay. And here, I don't even see the M's over here. Don't even see them there. But anyways, basically about 95% or greater of Europeans have Semitic mitochondrial DNA, and Middle Eastern Semitic at that. Okay, here's the Denisovan chart that I was talking about. Remember there's the Denisovan cave right up here. You can actually see the Denisovan cave. But it is the area of the Mongolians, which are basically descendants of Nimrod with the CY chromosome, which is Eurasian anyways. But then people with the most Denisovan DNA are over in this area of the K, the M, and the S, because K is over here, M and the S is right here, and K is over here. And of course, the C would be over here. But of course, this is incomplete. This information is incomplete. It just has one marker here, and so that would be just general estimates. You have these markers here as opposed to these markers here. So these are just basically computer estimates or whatever. But it does show that the allele frequency of Denisovan DNA is in the Eurasian population and the Hamitic autosomal population. And what it also shows is that this area here, which is highly Semitic, all the way up into Scandinavia here, does not have is cold for Denisovan allele frequency. So not only is Denisovan not Semitic, not only is it Hamitic and Japhetic, it's not Semitic, which shows this cold spot here. And wonder of wonders, shows up in America as well as a cold spot for Denisovan DNA. And how would that be if the American Indians are both Hamitic and Japhetic? How do you get a Semitic marker over here, or allele frequency? That's because there's some of the American Indians came over here from this area here and were basically Semitic, have Semitic or Mediterranean DNA. And of course, this area here is the area of the CY chromosome, which is the Auca, Waorani, Wayuu, and the Kichwa Indians, which are descendants of Cush or Nimrod. Here's the. This is the contrast between Denisovan and Neanderthal. We can show the concentration here. You see this concentration here. And, but it's not a very good map. The same map is used to show without the Denisovan DNA. This one is a little bit confusing, but here is the evidence of the indigenous populations in America, which I've gone through before. Might be a little bit boring at this point, this stage. But in America, which is brown, you have the largest population, of course, is the Q. That's Madai, descendants of Madai. The C3 is missing from here. If you had a C3, it would come up as being in America as well, but they don't have the C3, so it's not showing up here. But what is showing up is the Assyrians, which is in the Jewish population as well, which is in the Mediterranean. The I1, the I2, which I'm pretty well established, is the tribe of Dan. The I1, the I2, the J1, the A2. Of course, this is in the days of King Solomon, before Israel separated from Judah. So that's why you have the I, everybody represented here, I1, I2, J1, J2, because the I1 is all the way up in Scandinavia otherwise. But it was here in the days of King Solomon, it was in the Mediterranean, which became part of the Phoenician traders or sailors that went to America. J1, which is Israel and Arabic, and J2 is Judaic. Plus you have the Javan Sea peoples, the TY chromosome in America. Huge, huge representation here of the Greek Sea peoples, of the Phoenicians, of the Mediterranean Sea peoples in America. And of course the R1b of Southern Europe is known to be in America as well as Africa too. But King Tut is an R1b as well, one of the kings of pharaohs of Egypt. Anyways, that's basically Mediterranean. That's why American Indians do DNA tests, autosomal tests, and it comes back Mediterranean. They're wondering what the Mediterranean, aspect is of their genetic history, genetic lineages. Well, it turns out that this Mediterranean, these markers here, Mediterranean, happen to be the Phoenicians that controlled the sea routes in the days of King Solomon, when Israel was at peace with the Phoenicians in the days of King Solomon. So, again, this is the mitochondrial DNA. Notice the diversity in, say, Uzbekistan. The diversity of the mitochondrial DNA is basically the cradle of civilization, where the ark landed, where people moved out from. So people, the most mitochondrial haplogroups are in, of course, this area of Asia, Middle East, and Asia, not Africa. And what here, the diversity in Africa is because of people from here that went there. Anyway, so when they try to say that Africa is the most diverse, you can see how diverse it is. Not very diverse as far as the maternal lines and the paternal line is the same thing. Okay, here's the B again. So we have something interesting here because this is the mitochondrial DNA. We have a story about Israel leaving the Middle East and going to the Philippines. And, some people are adamant that the Philippines are Israelites. Turns out that they do have mitochondrial DNA from the Middle Eastern Semitic maternal lines in the Philippines, which would be the B, which is the red color, which went all the way to Polynesia, but it's the red color. The B, the F, which is this pea green color, I guess. Maybe not that one. It's the lighter. And the P, which is this color here. But it's hard to see in this map. But they're basically, it's Semitic, it's Middle Eastern Semitic mitochondrial DNA in Asia. Whereas the other one is the A, which would be the blue. Where's the B? Where's the A? No, the purple. So this purple, all this purple up here is the mitochondrial DNA that accompanied Madai, because Madai asked to marry the wife of Shem. So that is the Asiatic mitochondrial line, which is known as what is it known as? Is it the R? Anyways, it's the it's Semitic mitochondrial DNA all the way in America and Asia, because Madai asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. So that's another line. So I guess it's the N and the R. The N would be the N. The N is the more Middle Eastern mitochondrial DNA. The R is the other line. But anyways, it's not shown very well here. So, but that's the maternal lines, maternal haplogroups. This one here I'm showing just for basically one purpose, because it shows this is the population of Iran, but it has almost half the population is, well, either Semitic, but actually descendants from Arpachshad. So these are all J2s. Notice you have these different percentages of J2. Over here is J1, more J1, which could be either Arabic or Judaic. But then you have this J2 here, which is M172, 20% of the population. I'm guessing, I'll just make a guess and say that this J2 population here, which is Judaic, obviously, apparently, This is all Judaic from the tribe of Judah. But this lineage here, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it's probably Davidic. So everybody that has a J2 and 172 are probably direct descendants of King David and King Solomon. And these would be other lions of Judah in the area. So that's the purpose of that. Of course, this is Elam here. This is Assyria here. And this is R1A is Ashkenaz. I don't know what that's doing there, but it is. Well, it's because Ashkenazes are also in India as well. R1A. Got R1B as well. And R2 would be Ripfath. And this is R1B. Yeah, R1B. Okay. And of course, Q is Madai, the Medes. And of course, a lot of these people that accompanied, well, it's mostly just from the area anyways. Okay. Now this is the interesting mitochondrial DNA, is the X. You can see it's spread out. It's basically, it's a Semitic mitochondrial line in Europe and Anatolia and the Middle East here as well. But what's interesting is that it's also in America where the copper mines are. Where the copper mines, I forget which area specifically was the copper mines, but it's this general area. So where the Phoenicians were going to America mining copper, and you have this X2A, the same X2A in both places in America, right where they had the copper mines, and right in the Levant area of where the, Syro-Phoenician, where the Phoenicians, basically Israel, was. Okay. So that connects the Phoenicians to America by way of the mitochondrial DNA. Again, you can see the same thing here again. This X here in America and here. So that supports the idea that the Phoenicians were in America in the days of King Solomon. This is the Y haplogroups again. Africa, not so diverse. Uzbekistan, very diverse as far as the different family tree lines, which would be genetic diversity. As far as I'm concerned, genetic diversity would be the different family tree lines in the area of the Levant, of the Fertile Crescent, not Africa. Okay, so you can see for yourself where the diversity is. See, again, this is the Y chromosome. This would probably be C, this pink here, that'd be C, right? And Q would be this other color here, whatever that is. This is the O, Y chromosome would be Magog. This is the largest population as far as the Y chromosome lineages are concerned, including Madagascar for some reason. So this includes China, Korea, and these islands here, and New Zealand and Hawaii. But that would be Magog, descendants of Magog. That would be the Thracians, all came all the way from Thrace, all the way to India. With Alexander the Great, this would be the T, all the way from Javan, all the way to India. And of course, the Greek Sea Peoples had trade with Africa as well. The Horn of Africa. So this one is the one where I can show, hopefully, the B, the F, and the P is not here. No, I can't show it. But anyway, because this is a more general picture, this would be the mitochondrial DNA, which is the A, which is all the way in America, and here as well. The B, which is Semitic. The C and the D are Asiatic, they're not Semitic. So the C and the D is Asiatic mitochondrial DNA. F is Semitic, and the P, which is not here, is Semitic. The other ones are, this is Asiatic, and the Z, I think, is Asiatic. But anyway, moving right along. R1A is Ashkenaz. You have the R1A, the R1B. So we have Ripath, Ashkenaz, and this I would be the lost tribes of Israel in Europe. This Meshech went all the way north through the strait here, all the way north. Again, the lack of diversity in Africa, as far as the Y chromosome was concerned, all the diversity is elsewhere. So you don't listen to that line. This is either the C descendants or the Denisovan descendant. I'm not sure which, but I think it's a C because it's all the way into America. It's probably the C paternal haplogroup. Here's the Q of Madai. Remember, Q, of course, not huge percentages, but Madai did go to Europe, and in this area, as a matter of fact, Madai was in this area here. So you can see the descendants of Madai in Europe, the ones that went to Europe. The other ones went to America, elsewhere. These would be the Syrians. After the Assyrians ruled the world, they ran to the mountains. And for some reason, there's a large population of Assyrians up here, which probably might be explained too. So now this is a good map here because it shows the original Tower of Babel area and all these cities here of Mesopotamia. Of course, these are known areas. There's Babylon up there. And we have the Eridu and Ur. Where's Ur? Ur is right here. Ur of the Chaldees, right here on the coast. It used to be a coast right here. It used to be part of the Persian Gulf here. The water used to go up to this area because this is ancient coastline. So that's the ancient coastline there. Ur was right on the coastline. And because they used to be separated, they used to be separate from each other, the Tigris and Euphrates, but they joined together since then. Nimrod's, Babel, Eridu. So this is Ur of the Chaldees, where Abraham was raised, where Abraham came from. And this would be the Tower of Babel. When in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided, everybody separated into family groups and began speaking their own languages, and then they separated from each other. So there you go, and this is the land of Shinar. This is the land where Nimrod was king. And of course, Nimrod is the son of Cush. He was the great hunter in the Bible. He had the coat. The coat supposedly from, that was a magical coat or whatever from who knows who. It's supposed to give him some kind of blessing or something. That's what they thought. And that's how I guess he claimed to be king or made him king because he had a coat, which is a whole bunch of stuff. But anyways, Abraham was living at the time Nimrod was king of the land of Shinar. So a lot can be explained there. Basically the same things. The Javan Greeks, Lydia, all the different Eurasians up north, and Madai, the blue Semitic tribes. Then they have Kush here. See how it's mixed with Arpachad. I don't know if that's a mistake there. You have Kush over here. They got it blue. Oh, I know what this is. It's they're claiming to be Semitic. But anyways, it's another story. It's a long story. It'll probably be the Hebrew Israelites trying to claim to be Semitic, but they're really not. Anyways, you have Elam here, that's correct. Asher here, Aram there, Arpachad. Cush was here. I mean, Nimrod was here. And Nimrod's father, Cush, was in Ethiopia, that's correct. But all these other are the northern nations, of course. Be the same thing up here. Probably where they got it. Scythians and such. Basically all the same thing. Of course, Elam is always in this area here. Madai is always in this area here. Assyrians in this area here. Of course, they ran to the mountains whenever things got tough. W is the mtDNA, probably somehow related to X, which is Semitic Mitochondrial DNA. Here's the one in the Philippines to show that it could be true that some of the Middle Eastern Semitic or descendants of Israel went to the Philippines. This is the only case you could make for that, would be by way of the mitochondrial DNA, because there is no Y chromosome DNA that's Semitic in this area. But we do have the P here. That's Semitic. That's a Middle Eastern Semitic. We have the B, which is these blue colors. All the blue colors. They're all B, which is Middle Eastern Semitic. And what is it? The F. The F is the red. The F is Middle Eastern Semitic as well. That would be the only case you can make for Jews leaving Israel or Babylon, or wherever it was. I guess they left Babylon and they went to the Philippines, which is looking for the Garden of Eden or something. And they went to the Philippines, apparently. Somehow. Some of them did, because this is not the Eurasian, it's not the Asiatic mitochondrial DNA, this is not the wife of Madai DNA, mtDNA. This is Middle Eastern Semitic mitochondrial DNA in the Philippines. So that would be the only case that could be made for that. Oh yeah, here we go. After I showed everything. So it's the B, these blue colors, all these blue colors, which which also went to America. The B went all the way to America. The F is the Reds, and the P, which is a significant portion of this area. Okay, and the rest would be Asiatic. So the Asiatic would be probably the M's, except for the N. I think the N is, I have to check, but I think the N is Semitic as well. Pretty sure the N is, but the other ones, the Y, the M, the E, yeah, that's all. The rest is Asiatic mitochondrial DNA. So here's an example of North Africans being their own lineage. This is the lost tribes of Israel, including Dan, which is in Sardinia, Baltic regions, and this area here west of the Black Sea. Of course, the I ones are up here because this is both of them. Okay, I guess that's about it, right? Here's the Canaanites, list of the Canaanites that were in the land of Canaan. And it's basically showing the land of Japheth is all this red area. The land of this in the middle is Semitic, basically, except for Shinar is because of Nimrod. Nimrod is the king of Shinar. And this area would be Ham. So you Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Okay, the Table of Nations. Table of Nations. And Lud would be Lydians. Tiraz, Thracians. Javan, T. Thracians are L. So there you have it. That's about it for the three greatest discoveries in physics, geology, and biology. The three greatest, most recent discoveries. Hello. Oh, we got people visiting here. We got Anastasia, got Azrai, Cheryl, Alec. I got this guy again here. I got well, yeah, maybe somebody blocked them. I don't know. We got another one. Okay, and Redefine Living. It was here earlier. Wesley Bond. Catch y'all later. Nimrod is also known as Tammuz. Okay. I gotta see if I can remember Tammuz whenever they start talking about Assyria or what do you call it, Mesopotamians, the Sumerians. All right. Well, God bless everybody, and I've been going on long enough, I think. So, those are the three basic discoveries in physics, geology, and biology. Physics would be addressing the quote-unquote time-light problem. showing that it's really not a problem because time runs at different rates, especially when there's no gravity. So that time speeds up and billions of years could go by real fast in outer space where there's no gravity to slow down time. Where, like in our galaxy where we are, time is slowed down. So our time runs at a slower rate than the time between us and the distant galaxies that we're looking at. So that the billions of years could go by real fast while our time is slowed down. So that could easily clear up that problem. Geology, the continents broke apart. They were all conglomerated near the South Pole when they broke apart. For whatever reason, they broke apart. Maybe it got hit with some kind of a asteroid or something. But the centrifugal force broke them apart from the South Pole, and the centrifugal force pushed them out away from the South Pole, which pushed them north, pushed the northern parts into the Arctic and froze the animals. That's why you have forests and animals frozen instantly in the Arctic, in the Siberia and North America. And then the biological genetic discovery would be assigning the haplogroups to all the different people from the table of nations, both the maternal and the paternal lines match up perfectly as predicted by young Earth creation teaching. So those are the three greatest, most recent discoveries in physics, geology, and biology. So God bless everybody. Take care. And I got to take a little break, rest my voice because it's about ready to crack up. All right. God bless everybody. Take care.